Hey everyone, Lauren Robertson here. Yesterday, Amy sent me a message asking how I deal with skeptical clients. And I know that that is something that a lot of mediums face, probably all of us at some point. I thought it was a great question, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to answer that question. So, here's how I deal with skeptical clients. First thing to realise is that there's a really wide range of what it means for a client who sits down to have a reading with you or who comes to one of your live demonstrations or gallery readings to be skeptical. There's a very wide range of what that means. Some skepticism is very healthy. You know, we should have doubts about things. We do have that question in mind, and that sense especially of mediumship being this really sort of strange and radical thing to many people, like, how can this be so? And people who have a skeptical but inquiring mind, they are good. They are a good type of skeptic. It is natural and normal to have those doubts. And as evidential mediums, the whole point of why giving factual evidence in mediumship is so significant on behalf of spirit is so that you can overcome those fears and overcome those doubts and prove that life is eternal. If you think about it, if your audience or your clients, if society even didn't have some skepticism about the reality of life after death, then there would be no point in mediumship. You know, if everybody just believed that like life went on after you die and mediumship's a thing, then there would be no point in trying to prove that existence. And where we are in our life's journey, where society is at the moment, there is still a point to prove. There's still something to prove. So please don't be afraid of skepticism. Please don't be afraid of that part of your job as a medium, which is to prove beyond that doubt that we exist on after we die. So we go from that end of things, and you know, even many people who are parapsychologists who claim to be skeptics, they don't necessarily have like a bad feeling. You know, they don't have a feeling of like, you're a con artist or you're this or you're that. The skepticism is coming from an inquiring place, a place seeking evidence, a place seeking the truth. I wrote in my book, The Medium in Manolos, about an opportunity I had to speak at the Scottish Society for Psychical Research. And I did a demonstration of mediumship and I spoke all about my theories about mediumship, and the audience were full of skeptics, right? So a parapsychological society which were allegedly skeptical. And I have to tell you that it was one of the best demonstrations of mediumship I ever gave. And when I looked at that audience, I didn't see skeptical people looking back as in questioning my integrity, questioning my authority in these matters, questioning my sanity, or anything like that at all, or doubting the spirit world or having any bad feeling. Quite the opposite. I looked at these skeptics and saw them like wishing me well and felt them wanting it to be real and wanting it to work and just figuring out how it can be so. So a skeptic can look like that, and that's not somebody to be afraid of. That's an ally. That's somebody who, is on the same journey as us. Maybe they're just coming at it from a slightly different point of view. But I think what Amy's referring to in her question, and what many of you will be worried about or maybe even have experienced, is not so much somebody who's a skeptic as it is somebody who is cynical. Alright, somebody who is a cynic. And that is a very different profile of a person than somebody who has intelligent, thoughtful, truth-seeking, healthy skepticism. Alright? So when we have basically our worst nightmare as a medium, for somebody who wants to come and have a reading with us, is for that person to sit down with their arms folded with an attitude and be like, well, prove it, what am I here for then? And to come at us not with a healthily skeptical energy, but with a cynical energy that brings into question our abilities, our integrity, and quite honestly makes us feel quite violated and put on the back foot, and understandably so. And look, there is a huge spectrum in between as well. You know, there are some people who come for a mediumship reading and they've had amazing evidence and they are already like in 100% because they've done work with other mediums and they're really interested in what you have to say and they're very open, and it's a very, very easy and rewarding experience for all. And you know, right the way through to the other end, which is like cynical skepticism, where the person is arriving, taking up your time, your energy, your space in the world, you know, like coming to you as a medium already thinking that you're full of crap, to be honest. And so it can be tough territory to navigate, but here are some top kind of points or tips or things to think about when it comes to dealing with cynical skepticism, which is the one that like doesn't feel good, and we want to try and avoid reading for people like that if possible. So what I would say about sort of cynicism is that people can be very attached to their pain. So when somebody comes to you for a mediumship reading and you're about to, you know, sit down and say something to them that's going to hold them accountable, expose something that they've done, look at them in a vulnerable way that they actually don't really want to be looked at, is going to force them to admit the reality of life after death, and therefore they have to stop being bitter or hating or, you know, suffering or struggling. People don't want to let go of those things very easily. People do not want to be like, well, okay, I mean, my suffering's been my best friend for the last 10 years since my husband or my mum or my dad or whoever died, and I'm going to come and see you and you're going to tell me that I actually don't have anything to suffer for because they're still alive in the spirit world, and I'm really not ready to let that suffering go. I'm not ready to give that up. That suffering has been a friend to me. And so anything on that spectrum of like you knowing more than that person, or you forcing that person to give up their suffering, or you shaking that person's worldview when they don't want it shaken. You know, they don't want that shook. They don't want it shook. They're coming to you for a reason for one part of their mind or one part of their personality, and then there's this other deeper desire or deeper need which does not want to have a successful reading with you. All right? And I'm not blaming that person or saying that that's a right or a wrong thing, but the fact is, like, getting through life with a worldview that we can believe deeply in, and which seems to be cogent with reality, and which sort of navigates our way through life, is not something that we easily want to give up, because it is a very debasing and, you know, can be quite crazy making experience to be like, okay, everything you thought was right this whole time was wrong. Everything you thought you should be sad about, you should really rejoice in. Everything you used as an excuse to act like an ass or blame people or be angry or like tap out of life and opt out of life is all an illusion. So you need to take responsibility and wake the hell up. You know, if the underlying tone of what you have to say in your mediumship is that, people don't want to hear it. Like, some people really do not want to hear it. And so they come to you with, unconsciously, a very guarded perspective of their existing worldview. They may also have been, you know, disappointed by a medium in the past. They may have had their boundaries violated, which we talked about in another video, by a medium in the past. They may just have a lot of confusion and other issues that they are bringing to the reading. And so this is talking about like an extreme example that's like way on the other end of cynical skepticism. You know, that sort of person that seems to rejoice in kind of hating on you, hating on what you do, being unreceptive to what you have to say, wanting you to fail, wanting you to be wrong. And these are some of the reasons why, because their worldview is anchored in protecting that belief in some way that's really important to them. So I want to start off just by sort of saying that, because, you know, if somebody's never met you and they've come to have a reading with you and they start off with that attitude or like from that place, then it's evidently not about you because they don't know you, so how can it be? But then the question becomes, number one, why are you attracting clients like that? Number two, why do you feel the need to sort of prove yourself to that client? And what is actually to be done about clients like that? And like I said, there's a very wide spectrum. There's some people who come with the big I am, and they're like, I don't think this is going to work. And literally you say one thing that's true and one thing from like their dad in spirit that's like a really accurate message that's undeniable, and they break. It was all a very thin veneer. They just crack and the true heart comes out and the true love comes out and the emotion comes out, and that is absolutely fine because we all have defenses. Lord knows I have been defensive in the past, so that is all fine. But then you've got the ones who are harder, who are hardened, who, aren't going to have it proven to themselves because they're there specifically to prove you wrong, and they want to dominate the energy of the conversation in that respect. And that's a reading that most of the time I recommend you not proceed with. And so how to deal with somebody like that starts before the reading even takes place, and your branding and your marketing, if you like, and how you put yourself out there, why that person's come to you for a reading, why they are attracted to having this experience with you, and really making sure that you're clear and satisfied, to be honest, with the client and with all of those things beforehand, and that then they are provided with like a policy, maybe a refund policy if they're paying for their reading, or you give them like a written walkthrough of what they can expect and what you are able to do and what you're not able to do, so they come to the reading with that full knowledge and don't feel that they're being kind of blindsided by something that they didn't expect. But if you get to that point and somebody's come for a reading and they have a horrible attitude and they're really skeptical, cynical, that the attitude they're giving off is unkind and nasty, then you really need to take control of that situation. So usually what I'll do is, if I feel that vibe is coming at me, or if the person has said that is why they're there, for me to fail and be wrong, then I will literally stop the reading and say to them, listen, you have to, here's the point I want to make about this, right? You have to establish the tone of the conversation as the practitioner, as the reader. You cannot get into that, okay, let me try and prove it to you energy, because somebody who's there to disprove you is never going to be proven by anything that you say. So it's a complete and utter waste of your breath, a waste of spirit's time. It's highly demoralizing, and you don't have to put up with that. So you have to undergo a process to transform the conversation and effectively get the ball back in your court and empower yourself in that conversation. So I usually stop. I don't do the reading, I don't start the reading if I haven't already, or I don't proceed with it. And I have them explain themselves. I have them explain themselves. They're the one that's come here taking up my time. They're the one that's come here taking up spirit's time. There's some part of them that's hurt, injured, wounded, in pain or whatever, that wants healing, and then they're the one coming here and wasting that time and resisting. So that needs to be rectified before anything can be moved on from. So usually I'll ask them, I'm like, can you explain to me why it is that you've come for this reading today? Because what I'm hearing you say right now is that you're not open for this being the best possible experience. So please tell me about, this is not, you're not getting charged for this time or anything. I'm just trying to understand where you're in fact coming from. And a lot of people will be surprised by that, and they will be taken on the back foot, because the assumption, or maybe their life story or wherever they've come from, is that they can just rock up and treat a medium any way that they want. The burden of proof is on the medium to prove spirit, but the burden of proof is not on the medium to prove their own integrity. And if somebody comes at you questioning your integrity, then that's on them, and you have to rectify that before you move forward into the reading if you feel you can do so. So I usually say to them, why don't you tell me why you've come for this reading today? See if we can get on the same page here. And then I'll sit and listen to what they have to say. and I'll probe and I'll ask more questions, and I won't be doing it from a defensive place, but I'm also not moving on to try to work with them if their heart is truly closed, honestly, if their heart is truly closed. So then, depending on what they'll say, I'll call them on it. I'll say, look, you're a participant in this experience, and if you are here genuinely to try to prove me wrong, to make me look like an idiot, to prove that I'm fake, or, you know, for whatever reason you're here for your own reasons, then that is exactly what you'll get, because you're a collaborator in this process. So is that what you want, really and truly? Please tell me now if that's what you're here for, or are you here for something else? And again, sometimes just stepping out of that medium-client dynamic and into a human-to-human dynamic can be really, really powerful at disarming. And again, like, it's up to you how much you want to go down that road. You know, if somebody rocks up to you with an energy that you just don't like, you have the right to be like, this reading's not happening today. You know, give an explanation or don't. You're also within your right to do that. But that is why I definitely recommend you have policies that are written in which you walk through with your client beforehand, so that you avoid ever getting into a situation like that, or so that you have a policy in place in advance for how to deal with it that both you and the client know about. I really hope that's helped you, my loves, to know how to deal with a client that's not necessarily skeptical. True skepticism that's in search of truth can be on our side, and it can be a fun adventure to go on together to try and, you know, to wow them and to get that evidence. And spirit loves to be studied and to play those kind of experimental games with mediumship. But a closed heart and a closed mind and cynicism about you and skepticism about you is not something that you have to put up with, and it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to do an impactful, powerful reading from that place. So conserve your voice, conserve your energy, put it in writing in advance what's acceptable and what's not, and resist the urge to get into that energy of proving your honesty or proving your worth as a human being. Really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions for me, please leave them in a comment. I would really love to answer your questions in a future video. Please do subscribe to my page or my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and share it. And thank you very much in advance if you decide to do that. Lots of love from me, and I'll talk to you again really soon.